Life Adventure News.
Federal jury has convicted singer R. Kelly on federal racketeering and sex trafficking charges, finding him guilty on all counts. Deliberations first began on Friday at federal court in Brooklyn before the panel of 7 men and 5 women took the weekend off. R. Kelly has denied the allegations and chose not to testify in his own defense. Let's bring in Jerika Duncan now, who is outside the courthouse right now. Hi, Jerika. What more can you tell us about the jury's verdict?
We just got confirmation, as you stated, guilty on all counts. The 3-time Grammy winner, now a convicted felon. This is a case that goes back many, many years for many people who testified and talked about these allegations that had been mounting. They introduced evidence regarding R. Kelly's relationship with singer Aaliyah, who's deceased, but that goes back to 1994. There were allegations from 6 women who said that they were underage when they had sexual relations or sex with the R&B singer. 50 witnesses over the span of about 6 weeks, 11 accusers, but again, this case mainly focusing on 6 people who testified that R. Kelly sexually assaulted them, abused them. We heard so much testimony, so many hours. People were crying at times on the stand, and even within the last couple of hours, the judge allowed, instead of the transcripts to be given of what was heard on video that the jurors saw, we actually listened to the audio of the video that the jurors was sound. And all I can say, Tanya, that it is something we are not even at liberty to describe. It was confirmation that some of those horrific allegations made by the people who testified actually happened, one of them being defecating and sex acts all at the same time. But again, just to reiterate, this is a case that goes back to 2019 when R. Kelly was first charged with these federal crimes, as well as other cases and charges that he's facing. Guilty on all counts means decades of prison time. I don't even know if we'll be talking about that Chicago case or the Minnesota case because he was facing up to life with these counts of racketeering and sex trafficking.
Right. I want to ask you about what he faces ahead in just a moment, but to just go back to the trial, as you pointed out, federal prosecutors had very credible witnesses against R. Kelly.
Yeah.
And then Kelly's defense team spent time trying to discredit those witnesses. You followed this trial. Which team do you believe gave jurors the most compelling argument?
The prosecutor spent 6 hours painstakingly going through the arguments that had been made throughout the last 6 weeks here. Then you had the defense that essentially framed this as these are women, they said, that were liars and were opportunists. But obviously the jurors of 7 men and 5 women saw it differently, guilty on all counts. But we knew that this was going to last several weeks, that there was going to be a lot of information and testimony given by various people, not just people who accused R. Kelly of sexually assaulting them, but people who worked with him. The defense only called 5 witnesses, while the prosecution called a total of 45, and again, at that over about a 6-week period.
And of course, R. Kelly still has legal battles after this trial. In Illinois, he faces more federal charges, including child pornography and aggravated criminal sexual abuse. He also faces criminal charges in Minnesota for 2 counts of engaging in prostitution with a minor. He has pleaded not guilty to all of these charges and denies any wrongdoing. But what will happen next for R. Kelly?
And you have to excuse me, I'm just looking at my phone as we have producers inside just giving me information as things are happening. As far as what will happen next, that's a good question, Tanya. I spoke to Steve Greenberg, one of R. Kelly's attorneys who's in Chicago. When I asked him what he thought would ultimately happen today, he said, I gave up a long time ago on trying to determine how jurors are thinking. I'm waiting to hear a comment from him, knowing that R. Kelly has been found guilty on all counts. But he also said that he felt when prosecutors have to get creative, he said, to bring criminal charges, that's dangerous. So what is he talking about there? He's talking about this idea of using a criminal enterprise to make a case against R. Kelly. That's usually reserved for organized crime, but in this case, they used that to say that he was the leader that had a huge influence in the people around him to help him procure, to get women that he essentially wanted to have sex with. And then you have the sex trafficking, having sex with minors over state lines. So we're waiting to see what Steve Greenberg has to say, because again, he represents him in that Chicago case that you're speaking of. But wow, what a fall from grace. I don't know that too many people are that shocked. Just to go back, if you know, where all of this started, 2017, there was that BuzzFeed article that claimed that R. Kelly was holding women in his home against their will. Then we even did a story with Faith Rogers, 2018. She said that R. Kelly unknowingly to her gave her an STD, which was a crime, and she was suing him at the time for that. And then in 2019, he's charged with crimes right after that Surviving R. Kelly documentary airs, where many women came forward in that documentary alleging that R. Kelly sexually assaulted and abused them. So this is years in the making. And again, they started out, the prosecution, referencing his relationship with Aaliyah. They had people that testified that they saw them taking part in sexual acts when she was 13, 14 years old. There was record of them trying to allege that they had been, not allege, but the records that they were married when she was 15 and he was 27. So they started there and just really built their case, showing a pattern and a history of someone who had sexual encounters with young women. And again, the jurors believed the prosecution. The defense maintained that these women were liars, that they were in consensual relationships, and that they were opportunists, that now the money is gone and they want to speak out. But the jurors saw otherwise. R. Kelly found guilty on all counts involving racketeering and sex trafficking.
And Jerika, do we know when sentencing is scheduled to happen? Like you said, these are very, very serious charges, and R. Kelly could be behind bars for a very long time.
We don't know, and I'm actually looking at emails coming in, trying to figure that out. Sentencing will be on May 4th at 10 o'clock. So there's the answer. All of this literally just happening within minutes. So we're getting information. Again, we have crews inside, producers inside, getting even more information. But the big story today, 3-time Grammy Award winner R. Kelly, guilty on all counts.